Welcome to Fractional Frequency, our take on talent, people trends, and the reality of building up businesses in an economy that keeps rewriting the rules. I'm Amy Crook, founder of STRATIVIS.
And I'm Erin Totis, Managing Director of Talent Delivery, which basically means I live in the universe of finding the right people to make an impact for our clients fast.
Around here, we talk about the real side of HR and talent, what works, what absolutely doesn't, and how to build teams that can carry a business, not drag it down.
We'll break down trends, share the behind the scenes of scaling a consultancy from zero, and probably overshare a little because that's where the good lessons live.
So whether you're building, hiring, leading, or just trying to keep your company profitable, you're in the right place.
This is Fractional Frequency. Let's get to it. Afternoon.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. Had a good day. It's good to have you in town this week.
It was amazing. The trip just flew by in the blink of an eye, but I'm also happy to be home, seeing my kiddos and in nice, warm North Carolina weather.
Yeah,
But it was
fair.
it was so cool as we were just chatting, I think on Wednesday, about our values. And
Yeah.
it sort of occurred to us that we hadn't really talked a lot about that publicly. They're on our website and all that stuff, right? But we haven't sat down to really share where they came from. And I think that matters. And so I'm super excited to take some time and chat a little bit about that so that we can share it with our connections, our customers, our followers.
Yeah, totally.
And the thing I think I love the most about our values beyond what they are, which we're going to get into, of course, is how we built them.
Mm.
I'm thinking back to Stratavis launching in August, me coming on board in September. And I
Mhm.
remember you flew out to Raleigh the first week of September.
Mhm.
And I think it might have been the first exercise we did. We sat down to do strategy and planning. And the first thing on your mind, on our minds, was who are we going to be and how are we going to operate? How are
Mhm.
we going to treat each other? How are we going to treat the people around us? And so I think it's so core to who we are and how we make decisions. It's not just, a marketing tactic for us. It's how we live and breathe Stratavis. And so this episode is about how our values were formed and why they hold.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. Um, I think both of us have, a ton of experience in, corporate America. So we saw firsthand what happens when businesses either are in high growth mode or markets are shifting and the people systems just can't support what the business needs. And who pays the price? Well, everyone. Um,
Hmm.
so the gap that I guess I felt like, and you agreed that we could fill, was that we have the experience in growing companies and companies that are going through shifts or changes, um, making those decisions while still keeping the people experience in mind. Um, because we've all seen it where, leaders who are well-intentioned, but they get overwhelmed and they just don't know what step to take next, or HR being super reactive instead of strategic. Um, it's it's never a good thing for your business to treat the people implications of decisions as an afterthought because it's so damaging to engagement and productivity, which ultimately, yeah, impacts everyone. And then of course, talent decisions being rushed, unclear, misaligned with goals, and then, people are running in one direction and then it's all changed to run in another. These uh these patterns have a real impact. I wonder, Erin, like for you, like is there things that you've specifically observed, like when these people systems or leadership don't take people into consideration?
Of course. I mean, I'm there are so many examples flooding my mind
Mhm.
right now of,
Yeah.
what I think most people, the word that would come to mind is like toxic
Mm.
environments. And if you really sort of peel back the layers on what you feel like is a toxic environment, I think a lot of times it comes down to leadership, sort of operating in a way where they're not thinking about those implications. And maybe I'll tell one story just to sort of illustrate where my mind is going.
Yeah.
I was working in a middle management position at a large enterprise. And so, functional team of over 100 people with many middle managers. And the leader of that function, I learned, had this like really poor practice of having a problem to solve or a special project in mind. And he would sit down separately with maybe three or four managers or senior individuals on the team and
Mhm.
assign them the problem to solve or assign them the project. But the catch would be that they didn't know that others were also running towards that
Mm.
work. And
Oh,
and so,
no.
imagine like you think that you have like this special opportunity to go and solve something, and then you uncover maybe as you're seeking feedback from peers or doing research that other people have also been charged with this as well. It just made
Mm.
people feel it made them feel less than,
Yeah.
and particularly on the heels of something they were really excited about and a great opportunity for their career.
Yeah. No one likes to feel like they're getting played. And, there's nothing wrong with crowdsourcing ideas, but like it's the transparency piece that's just a
Hmm.
mess. And then your brand with those people that probably looked up to you and felt like really great about being trusted to help with something, then that's just totally tarnished. And um I don't think people realize the full like implications of their interactions sometimes. Like I think they're just like, oh
Yeah.
well, on to the next thing. Seeing as we're having story time, I'll tell you a little one too, where I think, people systems not being what they should be. I have found that senior leaders particularly have kind of struggled to have like honest conversations in certain environments. And I think it's this this need to be liked maybe, or just,
Mm.
when you're used to being like top of the tree, um, your feedback is maybe delivered with between like somebody else, you have and so you're not necessarily as used to having the direct conversation. But I have an experience where a while, years ago, I was put up for a promotion, and two people on the senior executive team kind of blocked it. And, I had other people that were on the senior exec team that I had a closer relationship who, they were kind of confused. They were like, we were for it, like, don't really, know, but good luck with your conversations. Because what I decided to do after that was, set some time up with these leaders to kind of get the feedback. And when I got on the call with both of these leaders, both of them danced around it, didn't really
Mm.
want to say anything. And then the line, and it's so funny because they both near enough said the same thing. It was like, you know what? Like the things I'm thinking about were like 2 years ago, and I
Stop
don't
it.
think they're really relevant now. And I was just like, but you thought they were relevant enough in calibration to block a promotion that I had worked my butt off for. And so I understand that they didn't feel like it was going to have any value. So think about that, like when you're in calibration, like if this is not something that's either relevant right now or something that you would be comfortable sharing directly with the individual, like is it based in fact or is it just a feeling? And I think that's where the miss can go, because it obviously there was nothing that they could draw on to tell me. And I've seen it myself in calibrations where, people maybe just haven't interacted with somebody a lot, or maybe they've had like one situation that didn't go too well, and then it stays with them. You know,
Mm.
I'll just tell another quick story. Somebody who was on my team a couple of companies ago had said or done something way before I started. They'd been with the company a long time, but they said or done something maybe 3 years before I joined. And then I had been managing them a year. And in calibration, I couldn't get them a pay increase because of this weird thing that had happened 3 years ago that was not
Ah,
anything to do with the quality of the work or, and it was a real fight to get it. And I just remember being shocked that like that would be the hinge. 3 years ago, 3 years ago,
yeah.
something weird happened. So I don't, that's not a good system. Like calibration needs to be set up in a way where we're looking at fact, we're looking at impact, and ability, and rewarding it accordingly. Anyway, get off my
The old tapes drive me crazy. I won't go down that path because I think I could take us on a whole podcast episode about that. But,
soapbox.
I think it's so much of it is it boils down to courage in
Yeah,
communication at
yeah,
every level. And when you do that right and you think about the ripple effects that communicating or not communicating will have on the various people involved, maybe not the most important person to you, but anyone who's
right,
involved,
right.
that's just such a critical part in doing business. And you don't have to choose between smart business decisions and doing right by people in that
Oh,
capacity.
100%, 100%. And that's really why, people first always was the first value that we really honed in on. Um, because people first is how we've led teams for years.
Hmm.
um, Thinking about the implications, and especially when you're in a function that sits in HR, I always think about interactions and how we present ourselves is that we are the example. So being really thoughtful and understanding the business goal and wanting to make sure that we get there and doing right by people. That is what an HR function is there for, to make sure that we are enabling the business and that the workforce is treated well, treated fairly, feels good, has purpose, feels valued, and set the tone. Not in a kind of, you know, weird way, but just an example of like good communication, rolling out change correctly, making people feel supported when there is big changes. Like that feels like it matters, right?
It does. And anyone who says it doesn't, I think maybe just hasn't been on the receiving end
Mm.
of one that wasn't handled well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the always part is, just as important because it's not conditional on, if you're having a good day or everything's going well. It's even more important to be considerate of who you're communicating with, what the message is, how you make a decision when it's hard.
Hmm. It's so easy to live your values when things are great, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
when we've got great momentum and we've had, wins, it's
Hmm.
so easy for me to take some extra time with a job seeker proactively. It's so easy for me to follow up with people when
Hmm.
I know I should be following up with them, even though I'm tired and I want to shut it down for the day and go downstairs and see my kids. All of that is easy. It's much harder when we've had misses or
Yeah.
things are challenging and it really pressure tests if we mean it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we just stick with operating in a way that just feels really authentic to us. Um, I've definitely been in situations where there's been, you know, bad news coming because as like good news does travel fast, but bad news travels faster. And so, people get a vibe. And, the communication from the decision makers is just silence.
Hmm.
There's no acknowledgement, there's no um I get it. Like sometimes you can't share the decisions um immediately because sometimes they're, confidential and very uh impactful to people. But don't disappear. Don't cancel town halls, don't cancel team meetings, don't cancel one-on-ones when this when something's coming around the corner that's going to be difficult, because all that does is isolate people and they're going to make it up anyway. And so you can't talk about it because you've signed an NDA, fine, but don't disappear. Stick around for your people, show up for your people, um, because that's when they need you the most. And,
Absolutely.
and sorry, I'm back on my soapbox. Just it makes me think about the work we're doing now, um, and just the value of like long-term relationships rather than just like getting in there and taking on work that, isn't a good fit for us just to, get that quick invoice in. Like we don't want that. We'll keep the relationship going. And when there is something that, fits with what we do, like then we want to step in. We'll trade like a right now opportunity that's not right for us and carries risk for them and carries risk for us, to build the foundations that we need, target opportunities that are likely maybe a year or further away. But we stay true to our values, and certain conditions in organizations have to be true for us to feel good about partnering with them. And I'm super proud of us for that.
Me too. And I think that, as I think about how this shows up, it's our vision statement really resonates too, in that when people thrive, businesses thrive, and everything really ladders up to that.
Yeah.
And I think too, we've been talking a lot about people first always, and I want it on a hoodie. I love that tagline value statement. It's so us, but it's not the only thing. I think there are two other values that we've spent a lot of time really fleshing out and committing to that sort of flank that. And so I thought I'd spend just a minute on those.
Yeah.
And the first is relentless drive. And I think for me, this is that, people first, I think you could jump to the assumption that it means soft or slow, and
Mm.
it does not, at least not for us.
No.
It means high standards, taking ownership, and continuously improving. I mean, I learn something big or small or both every single day, every day.
Yeah.
And it's pushing through to just embrace your growth mindset in all seasons, and continue down the path to build something really great. The other is results that matter. And this one, I think we had a lot of laughs around just being in, more structured kind of enterprise environments where sometimes this gets lost.
Yes.
And, for us, like, what impact did we make? That's the
Yeah.
question we're asking all the time. It's not a vanity metric, activity for activity's sake. It's
Yeah.
not a polished slide deck. I mean, our slide decks are pretty polished, but that's not the point, right?
Yeah.
That's not the
Yeah,
deliverable.
there's
It's
good
just
work
supports.
behind it. It's not just oh yeah. I mean, I've been in meetings where setting OKRs for the quarter and, you know, it's the message from above is make them aspirational. It doesn't matter if you don't achieve them, but like let's make sure that when
Mm.
we roll it up, like it looks, really ambitious. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay. Like, you know, and I really loved when we first got together and we set our goals, that they were grounded in what the outcomes wanted to be, and they were
Yes.
realistic. It's thinking through, okay, what activity do we need to do to get to this result? And so, we started at the left side of the page with where do we want to be? And then we worked our way back and realized what activity needed to take place to make that happen. And that was the goals. there was no like outlandish, even though you did try and throw one in with the revenue target. Like I loved your, I think we should go for like millions of dollars in year one. And I'm like, I think you need to calm down. But you know, there was none of that. It was because we don't have to play that game.
Hmm.
But I think what other companies need to or should maybe embrace is that they don't need to play that game either. You know,
Yeah.
don't set aspirational targets for teams that over the last couple of years have been slimmed down. Uh, Work has increased. Budgets haven't necessarily been there for, you know, high bonuses and reward systems. So keep that in mind, you know, when you're setting your goals and think about the implications on your team because what looks really great in a slide deck also needs to translate into impact and outcome for the business and for your people to feel good about what they contribute towards those goals.
Hmm.
And so I guess it makes me think about like how our values show up in our work, you know, in how we operate as as Stratavis. And you know, I think about like the support that I've provided for the clients over the last 6 months. A lot of it has been that I want to help give them steady ground. I want to help give them a foundation of knowledge so that when challenges arise, they are better equipped to deal with them. You know, I don't want to go in there and just band-aid a situation so that, you know, I go in, fix it, okay, you're done, see you. I want to help enable people to have that foundational knowledge and expertise that when difficult situations arise, they have this like internal playbook of what those core things you need to think about um as they're dealing with the challenge that and so they can deal with it independently. And I think the way that we approach, you know, our thought leadership work in terms of, you know, the things that we share, this podcast, you know, we want to talk about real experiences, real things that have happened, not just the theoretical because that's where, you know, the lessons are is
Yeah.
in the real challenges that we faced and how we've overcome them. And, you know, the guests that we've had on are coming on and have had on, like they have the same real world experience. And so, you know, I think that's a couple of ways that our values show up. I don't know, what about for you?
I mean, every day. And I think I say this usually in every first conversation with a new client, in that what's different about us, about Stratavis on the talent delivery side, is that we've been on the inside. And so
Yeah,
we're not, you know, for us, it's not about just building the profile and going and finding a candidate. A lot of people can do that. A lot of tools can do that these
yeah,
days.
yeah,
And so the value is in listening a little bit deeper to the problems that they're trying to solve, asking bold questions when it's appropriate, challenging how they feel a certain solution will solve their problem, because it doesn't always. And
right.
sometimes we have to have a conversation about what will.
Yeah,
And so I think showing up with the courage to have those discussions, even if it doesn't benefit us
yeah,
in that decision moment,
yeah,
that's what's different about us. Because in the long term, right, when you build trusting relationships through those moments of, I recommended something that's not good for me today,
yeah,
but it was good for you and it was the right decision,
yeah.
that person or that client is going to come back to us.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of the root of it for me, you know, where we are, and this is in our vision statement too, we're intended to be a catalyst. We're not the hero
Yeah.
and we're not the crutch either.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why we're building the community that we are. We've spent a lot of time talking about this, working on this week even,
Yeah.
in not just clients, but founders, practitioners, business leaders in the market in various industries that have all have a very similar passion for doing business in the way that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And, we're working with people who are doing exciting things, who are challenging how the world operates, how the workforce operates, either through tooling or services. And at the core, they're striving to make things better. And
Yeah.
those are the kind of people that we want to surround ourselves with.
100%. And it's so energizing to interact with the community that we're building because everybody is on the same page. We're all doing different things, but we're all on the same page when it comes to the impact that we want to have. Um, this sounds super cheesy on the world.
It is so true, though. I mean, you think about the people you cross paths with, and the world is increasingly smaller in
Yes.
so many ways.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And, I think with these values in mind, Stratavis will keep, building towards those good relationships, good partnerships, good advice, clarity and conviction in the work that we do. And, we're really not trying to be like everything to everyone, right?
Hmm.
You know,
No.
we want to be um we want to be so helpful for the people that do trust us to partner with them on the work that we're so good at. And so yeah, I guess my final thought is just that, people first always is, and you said this at the top of the call, like it's not aspirational, it's operational. It's part of everything we do, and it's the reason that Stratavis exists. And so, if you're listening to this today and you want to explore the deeper value definitions, they're on our website, which is stratavis.io. And follow us. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn pages where we share a lot of our thoughts and insights. So if you're not already, please feel free to follow us, and you will hopefully see that, our values are core to who we are and they show up in everything that we do.
And I hope that for anyone listening, I hope that this conversation has made you think a little bit about your values,
Mm.
both your own or the company that you run or the company that you work for. If your values were pressure tested tomorrow, which ones would hold up, especially in a tough situation?
Mm. Yeah,
So I would leave people with that. It's worth taking some time to think through.
nice. Yeah, good thing to think about and sit with. All right, well, that's a wrap for another one. It's Friday afternoon, so what have you got another 10 hours of work left in you?
Just about. Maybe not after this week. Maybe we'll take it a little bit easy.
Oh, I know. I wish you were in town every week. It was so fun.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay, see
Well,
you later.
cheers. Bye.
Bye.